Long day, lady, low.
Well, I did it opposite of what I said I was going to do. I just brought everybody in. I was like, screw it. Why not? You know, let's work on the fly. First off, we'll just say hey to the human that's in here. There's a human in the chat. Who is it? Yo, what's up, Past Master Dan? Yeah, appreciate you swinging by, my friend. Past Master, if you're still here, make sure you share this out. Get some eyes out there, because we are my first promo stream, and we're promoting ROKIT. And every time I say that name, I think of Def Leppard. So I don't know if that's intentional.
Yeah, I'd kite the music, except I figured it'd get struck. So
yeah. Oh, I thought my nephew, he did just come in. What'd you throw at me? Oh, give me $1 back. Sorry, I know this is like a very professional aspect of this, but I sent my nephew up to the store to get broccoli to make chicken Alfredo tonight. So
awesome.
Oh yeah, I love making it's. I use the jar sauce, but I still season it and stuff like that. But I love making chicken Alfredo, man. Good stuff. So ROKIT.
I love eating
it. Yeah, hey, come on over, man. We're gonna have plenty. So ROKIT, man. First off, how did you and Aldous start like collaborating or doing something?
Me and Aldous have kind of been partners in crime since, I don't know, 2018, maybe a little earlier than that. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. You know,
yeah, it started in the chat, man. You know, watching Zach and watching Ethan back when this whole thing started rolling, and you know, you just kind of gravitate to people that say things that you like and stuff, and you end up, you know, talking back and forth and DMing and liking each other's comments. The next thing you know, you're hanging out in a couple of phone calls, getting to know the guys, and you start talking about, well, I like this and I like this, and man, wouldn't it be cool if this happened? And you know, it just, you evolve along those lines. Then you do some collaborations. The next thing you know, you're launching a magazine. So
nice. So Aldous, you were on One as well. You were the editor on One.
I helped out on One. I didn't necessarily edit it, but yeah, I mean, it was anything I could do to help Steve on a lot of his projects. I tried to do, and vice versa, man.
Yeah, Aldous has been one of my primary go-to sounding boards for a long time. So he definitely had a hand in that one. And yeah, on this one, you know, he's officially the editor at large, but he pretty much was on the first one, really.
Nice. And I want to say hey to Fanta real quick. We got Phantasmagorical in the chat. Welcome, Fanta, big supporter of Comicsgate and of this channel, friend of the channel. And yeah, so we got a couple people popping in and out. If I miss you and you come in, I'm sorry. You all know the drill with me. So yeah, so that's the way a lot of us actually do meet up. You know, like I met up with a lot of people on Couch Doodles when it was around, and then you know, I was like, oh, there's other channels I can get on. That's kind of fun. And then you know, like talk with in chats and like, oh, there's Luke, and now Luke knows this person, so Luke and I start talking with this person. It's great how this little scene comes together. You know, it's we have the similar mindset of like, we want comics to be great again. We want to not bring back the old days, but mainly amplify them, make them better, you know, and bring back. Yeah, it's just, you know, get back to the fun of comics and what they really were. You know, like, yeah, comics were fun, but they were also a little bit serious too. You have the things like Dark Knight, Watchmen, blah, blah, blah. But, you know, it seems like in today's age, especially today's time, so much has gone by that all these people got forced in that just don't care about comic books anymore. They just care about saying what they want to say and, you know, pitching something of their own viewpoints and their ideology. So where does ROKIT come in that regard?
Aldous?
Well, I think, you know, you talked a little bit about like, we want to see comics kind of go back to what they were or what we remember them as. Well, that's never going to happen, right? I mean, the days of the spinner rack are long gone.
Long gone.
You know, my kids will never experience the joy of going to the grocery store and just swinging down by the magazine rack and flipping through books. Those are over. But what we can do is try to bring back a semblance of what things like Wizard and Epic Illustrated represented, or the Comic Books Journal or Comic Book Buyer's Guide. Those don't exist at all.
Hero Illustrated even.
Or Hero, yeah. Those don't exist at all for the indie market. And it's a huge opening. It's an opportunity to not just present, you know, the stories that you're not hearing when people are on YouTube and talking, because they're going to talk about their projects. They're going to talk about this or what that. They're not talking about themselves and their history. How did they come up here? And then the same thing's true with a lot of the smaller, not quote unquote smaller creators that are, up and comers. This is an opportunity for them to get more eyes and exposure, both on
Yeah,
their story.
I would say that, like a lot of us of a similar, I was to ride my bike to the grocery store and check out the spinner rack. And then when it went the way of the LCS, then I was an every Wednesday guy. But yeah, at a fairly early stage, I was seeing Roy Thomas's Alter Ego, or, certainly Wizard, which you didn't have to go to the LCS to get, if you got direct supermarket with
they were at a grocery store.
Yeah, you could look through that. Yeah. And, then you had something you wanted to take home besides peanut butter, and, and I've always really been fascinated with the creative process. How are the things that I like made? And Wizard did that. Epic Illustrated did that to an extent. Certainly Alter Ego and comic. A lot of those magazines were some of my favorite things to find on a Wednesday.
Right.
And, so yeah, that coupled with the fact that I somehow fell into making a pretty good living for a pretty long time, making magazines, running and operating some power sports type magazines, motorcycles and jet skis and such. And, I think that, I was talking with Camel Moon for a piece that's in his piece in the magazine. And, it was about what you can bring to the table. What skill set do you have that you can bring to this table? I mean, I could draw a half decent Snoopy, and that's about it. So I don't have any, line work skills. That's not my game, but I've been doing press work, pre-press work, magazine design, certainly, writing and editing is how I got into that field. And I love making magazines, and I love comic books. And certainly, to sum up, the days of going to the shop every Wednesday to buy some books tailed off 10 years ago or so, because books were increasingly just shit, and I didn't want them anymore, So yeah, I mean, I like what you said, amplifying the spirit we once had. There's an element of nostalgia there, I suppose, but as we grow up in age, I think a lot of us are looking for a little piece of a simpler time, our childhood, or even our more my formative years didn't really occur until I was in my 30s. But yeah.
I want to say real quick to Paul Acevedo, what's up, man? A good friend of mine. And we got Matt Barr in the chat as well, legend, hero.
Always good, always good to see Matt around.
Barr's amazing, man. Probably one of my top favorite artists in CG. I mean, the man's a beast. So yeah. So like, your love of comics started late, like in the 30s, you said, or was it like early?
No, my love of comics. Yeah.
Okay. So what was your first, what did you first start really picking up when you went to like the convenience store, the gas station, and the spinner racks and stuff? What was your going to?
I went to Thanksgiving or Easter or something at my great aunt Tilly's house. And my second cousin, I guess was what he would have been, had, the proverbial box of comics up in the attic. And, this is 10 years down the road or whatever. But I must say that Mike Grail's Saturn Girl and Legion of Superheroes certainly caught my interest, But that's really what ignited it as much as anything. That and the little corner convenience store next to my elementary school had heavy metal right out there on the shelf where a 10-year-old
it shouldn't be. Yeah,
right. A 10-year-old boy could scoop it up and flip through it, and maybe even buy one occasionally by saving up his lunch money. And so I came to it really, really early, and I've always loved comics.
Yeah, dude, heavy metal, like, because when I first started collecting, we got a couple for free in the grocery store one time, and that's how it started. But my dad actually used to work with a guy, and he ended up running a comic shop. So my dad knew the comic owner. So like, he was with us, and the comic owner knew like heavy metal was a no-no area for kids. So I never really got to venture back there too often. Like, so up until maybe I started working for the comic shop, I'd work for comics. I didn't, because I had another job. But that's when I would like go over there and like actually flip, like, oh, these are so cool. I wish I knew about these earlier. Yeah. But yeah, and heavy metal is dope, man. I mean, that's kind of where like a lot of
Yeah,
people really let loose, you know,
it's
and
certainly
flex
gone
their
to hell
creative
now,
muscle.
but it was amazing
Yeah.
back in the day. And
Yeah, it's they really don't have many at my shop anymore. Like I'm a huge fan, as everyone knows, I'm a huge fan of Jonathan Wayshak, and he did a story in heavy metal, and it took me a while just to get that because they don't really carry them at my shop anymore. So it's like discouraging, but so that's pretty cool. Like, yeah, you gravitated to those things. So then what made you like, so you were always collecting throughout the years along with like working when you went into like the printing, like your sports publications and stuff?
I mean,
Just
even
kept
all of
collecting.
that. Yeah, I mean, that's my love of periodicals, magazines in general. I grew up in my granddad's motorcycle dealership, like literally in it, like we lived right next door to it, and that was my, from grade school on, whatever it was, from loading the pop machine and sweeping the floors and dusting the motorcycles to, eventually setting up the bikes out of crates or whatever. This doesn't really address the question, but as an aside, I think the most money I ever had was when I was in junior high and high school, when I was putting together motorcycles out of a crate, 10 and $15 a whack, and it was just like, I got a air wrench and I'm going to, properly torque these bolts. And that money falling out of my pockets, it seemed like back then. But the point is there were always magazines, motorcycle magazines, car magazines laying around. My dad subscribed to magazines, most of which he left out, some of which he kept in his bedroom, but you know how kids are. And so I've always loved the print media, and again, I'm pretty far afield of your question, actually, but wound up.
Dude, go as far as you want, man.
Well, I grew up riding motorcycles and started racing them really early, and
did you do that like professionally, like, or more?
I did.
Nice.
I paid my bills for a while. I wasn't gonna retire off of it, but I competed on the national level, and I did all right. And I won a handful of state championships here and there, and so I was pretty good at it, and I was good enough at it to meet a lot of people and make a lot of connections. And somewhere along the way, I actually, back when a journalist wasn't a bad occupation. I mean, I grew up in a different era, but, went to college and, was the editor of the magazine and the newspaper there at the school and all of that stuff. So I had that kind of background. And then after I got out, I was just like, dude, I'm only going to be young once. I'm drop the gate. Let's race. You can only do that for so long. Anyway, it all kind of coalesced to where I fell backwards into running several, partially running and then eventually completely being in charge of several motorcycle magazines and a couple of jet ski magazines and some stuff like that, because it was very much my background. I understood, the business aspects of it, and I understood the racing aspect of it, and certainly I understood the enthusiast aspect of it. But it all kind of came together to where I found myself, I loved it when Cycle Magazine showed up in the mailbox when I was 10 or 12 years old. And then later on, I was working at one, so that's how it all kind of.
Nice. Yeah. And I heard you say on a couple other streams you play in bar bands. You played in, guitar, I think it was, in some bar bands. What kind of music was
I've been playing guitar since, like a lot of guys, I calling my grandma to buy me an electric guitar when I was 12 or 13. And, those two things kind of go together a bit too, Jason, where there's been times when racing motorcycles and playing guitar doesn't really go together exactly, because either one will jack up your hands and wrists, but in a completely different way. But on the other hand, there were a few times when, you compound fracture your leg. Well, hell, you got 6 months to sit around and read comic books and play guitar. So, I played in a few bands and stuff. Yeah.
What kind of music was it?
Man, it was all over the map. But I think of myself pretty much as a blues player.
Ooh, nice, man. What are some of your influences?
At one point, I was chasing that whole heavy metal, Steve Vai, legato, hammer on. I had almost some 30-second notes together and all that, but that shit requires doing a lot of push-ups. You know what I mean? You got to do that and do that and do that. So
what were some of your musical influences, if can ask?
Well, I mean, probably it's a bit cliche, but I mean, if there wasn't Led Zeppelin, if there wasn't a Jimmy Page, I probably would have never picked up a guitar.
I'm not. Everyone knows I'm not huge on Zeppelin, but it's mainly the singer I'm not huge on. The music I dig, but
I've never really listened to singers. I just listened to I don't know the lyrics to songs I've heard 1,000 times. I couldn't tell you how they go particularly.
Right, you're more of the musical aspect of the side of it. I think most people who don't play an instrument do gravitate more towards like singers because there's words. And then like I have a friend who actually he's played in a few bands. He's done some production work and stuff. Like he listens to more of the musical aspects of things. So I think when you're a musician, kind of like when you're an artist, you pay attention more to like the line guys and the colorists than you do whenever you read the book. But you forget who the writer was on some things unless it's like a Chris Claremont or something like that.
I more remember where some guy uses a flatted fifth interval or something like that. How the lyrics go. It's like
right.
Yeah.
Well, I think when you're talking about that's one of the things that's great about ROKIT, right? Because you've got art previews and then you've got interviews, and it kind of does both, right? You're showing the line work, which is the music, but then you've also got the lyrics.
Exactly.
And, man, I'm with you on both sides of it. And not as a musician, I gravitate more towards lyrics, right? So musically, a guy like Tom Waits doesn't ring most musicians' bell, right? He's not hitting the tones. But lyrically, the man's a poet. And the way he constructs lyrics and the way he sings them and he goes through and he does the ups and the downs, it's beautiful. It's elegant. There's a crisp artness to it there. Same thing with Bob Dylan when you're talking about him. By far not the greatest guitar player. But if you listen to those lyrics, it's poetry. He's the poet laureate of rock and roll for a reason.
Yeah, I mean, a big influence.
Those same concepts all apply to comics, and it's art or is it story? And man, when they both come together, when they both hit and they resonate like Claremont did with Byrne on Uncanny X-Men, you hit a different lane of the highway and you're gone, man. And it's been so long since I've walked into an LCS and grabbed a book and I had anything resonate to that level. And then I found Comicsgate, right? And there's a couple of books, not all of them, but man, there's a couple of books that you open them up and you're like, this feels like Professor Murph's War Party is a great example of this. When I opened those floppies, it was like I was transported back in time and I was a kid reading comics again because of how that story is constructed, how that art works with the story. And those are the kind of things, those are the moments that we're trying to, bring across with ROKIT. It's not just nostalgia. There's a huge aspect of it that is nostalgia, but it's also get that printed that essence across, get that soul, and see if that doesn't resonate with more people.
Right, and also like you were saying earlier, like you don't know a lot of this stuff. Like they might say it on a live stream or in a promotional thing, but you have to catch it at that moment, at that time. Otherwise, like let's say there's 20 people watching that interview, or even 1,000, that's gone then, and you had to catch it that way. So if you missed it. But if you have ROKIT in your hand, you can read what they actually said and be like, oh, I forgot. How did Art T. Bear first, get his gig going? How did he start getting into comics? What veered him towards into this path from that? You mentioned Tucci was a paratrooper.
Yeah, paratrooper. Yeah.
Yeah, dope stuff. Now, he might have said it at a stream at one point. I don't know. You know what I mean? So, like, we have a select few people watching this, and thank you all for watching, by the way. Make sure you go back, ROKIT. Link is in the description below. We get also along with their Twitter handles of Aldous and Steve. But so with ROKIT, you can then go in, flip back and be like, oh wow, I forgot how he got from the paratrooper into drawing She, breaking in and stuff like that. Like I said, you might have caught it on a stream, but with few people watching, you would have to be like, oh, which stream was it? You have to go back and find it. But if you have that copy of ROKIT in your hand, you don't need to worry about digging and diving through all this digital stuff, man. It's a hassle. I try to find streams that I've listened to stuff before, and I'm like, man, I give up because it's like months before. You got to remember the title. You got to do all this crap. But if you have a magazine in your hand, though, not only do you get the story, but you get the pictures along with it. You get those great clips that you get in the middle of the thing, like a quote or something like that, a clip quote or something. Cool stuff, man. And like you all mentioned, do Wizard and stuff like that. But what would you say differentiates you from like those magazines? What sets you apart from those ones?
Well, it's certainly not a direct knockoff. I'm inspired by those are some of the publications I used to enjoy. But I think how is it similar? It's similar in that you grow up, you read comic books, and it's kind of like, to draw an analogy, when you first start listening to music, and maybe forever if you're not a musician, you don't really understand what parts comprise the whole. It's just all one big wall of sound. Not to invoke Phil Spector here, for God's sakes, but it's all one big wall of sound. But you might eventually get interested in how it is put together, and how the drummer playing slightly behind the beat influences where the accents lay for the guitar player. With ROKIT, I'm very intrigued by, there are so many ways to succeed in this world. There's not really a given path. And it's been a real joy to be able to sit and talk with Archie Bear for 2 or 3 hours. And yeah, a lot of it, unfortunately, winds up on the cutting room floor. But the very best parts of an interview, which, I go in with, I'm trained, I know what I'm doing. I know how to conduct an interview. I've got some guidelines that I kind of want to approach, but at the same time, you get your best interviews by letting the conversation go where the conversation goes. So it's to me, the underlying premise of ROKIT really is to take these amazing success stories like a Billy Tucci or an Archie Bear, or a John Malin for that matter, which is a very different story in and of itself, and talk to them about how did you find yourself where you are, and at the same time to kind of divert a bit of that spotlight from guys that are already very, very well known and place it on some guys that are extremely talented and might wind up, occupying the same stratosphere as the big names at some point, but maybe not as many people have seen their work. So, it's Keir Covington, Jay Potts. I'll try to keep it brief, but not that I always want to preface it with, it's Keir Covington's talent and ability that has him doing a book for Alterna. But before he was doing a book for Alterna, he was in the super fan art section of the first ROKIT. And now he's going to be in this one with a preview of King Cryptid from Alterna, which Peter has kindly, agreed to supply us with.
Nice.
But it's, but yeah, it's like there's so much talent, and how people apply that talent and how they succeed is, something that I think is fascinating. So
for sure, and it's inspiring when you look at like Mark Polton's in this issue, and like hearing Polton's history, and he wrote for the bigs, man, and then he lost his gig. They closed his book, and he's like, he still wanted to make comics. So what did he do? Well, he turned and he just started making comics. And the dude's, I think, on his 4th campaign this year alone, like his output is amazingly prolific.
Yeah.
And then you contrast that to a Peter Simeti, and how did Simeti get into indie comics? And there's like Steve said, there's so many different paths that it's showing the doorway, man. There's the way that a lot of people do, which is build your YouTube and put yourself out there and get known and develop a following. There's other ways to do it too. Multiple paths. Everything's open. And hearing the stories of how those guys blazed that trail, if they were the first one, or what lessons they learned along the way, it's invaluable, and it's awesome to be able to have that in print.
Yeah. Now, would you say you're fortunate enough, since like you don't have 120 people in your staff or something, like it's kind of you conducting the interviews. You could do more long, drawn out form interviews, get more in depth and more stuff. And unfortunately, some stuff may end up on the cutting room floor, but you actually still get more of that nitty gritty, like in depth, like getting to know him on a personal level as well, that can maybe get more into the magazine too. Would you say you're more fortunate in that regard, that you have less of a staff, and that you're more indie, so you can kind of have the luxury of doing that stuff?
Yeah, I mean, in certain ways, certainly, I mean, it's, I was fortunate enough to be the EIC or publisher of several of the magazines I worked at. So, I mean, what went into it was pretty much what came out of my head and what went in there. And I certainly miss having, an assistant to transcribe interviews, because that's, again, when you sit down and talk with Archie Bear, you're not taking notes. You're in the conversation. You're in the conversation, and it's fabulous. And then, a 3-hour conversation takes about 2 days to transcribe. And, I miss being able to pitch the recorder on somebody's desk and say, here, you know,
Here you go. Yeah.
this is what you're doing for the next couple of days,
Right.
you know, and the corporate credit card. But there's absolutely a freedom that comes with making your own independent comic or your own independent magazine that, you know, you're not answering to anybody, you know. I mean, doing a mainstream magazine in a certain way, you're answering a bit to your advertisers because that's where your revenue comes from. With ROKIT, I answer to the backers, the readers, and the we went round and around last night about not calling it a community. What did we come up with all this?
I like to call it a scene, pretty much. I like to call it like a
scene
scene
network.
Yeah, I like
I'm not keen on the community thing, but you know, whatever you guys want to call it, because it doesn't really matter. That's the
give it a name. You know, it is what it is.
Yeah, I like scene.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
You know, yeah.
Yeah, well, there was a free magazine or a newspaper type thing here called Scene Magazine, and I just really like that. Like,
Yeah,
term.
I remember
it's,
that.
it's a scene. Yeah. So yeah, and that, to me, that's like along with comics, like especially if you're one or two people on a comic book, you really don't answer to anybody aside from yourself. So you have to make sure you're putting your best foot forward and getting like the most out of you can in an interview, even and or even like, hey, you know, can you maybe push us some artwork or something? You know, I'll give you a few bucks here and there or whatever. You got to put forth your best effort to make it the highest quality standard. You don't have a luxury of just being like, well, we getting it pushed out anyway. If there's a crap article in there or two, oh well, you know, we'll have another one next month anyway. Like you have to really hammer away at it and like really get really great content out of something just to make sure people be invested and interested in this. Because it's not like you said, it's not like you can go down to your local shop or your local, you know, Giant Eagle and pick up a copy of ROKIT, which you should be able to, because how else are you going to get new people that are not in Comicsgate or not on YouTube or social networking?
Yeah, well, yeah,
like
I'm
introduced into this stuff. So
I'm absolutely open to a newsstand distribution.
Yeah, that would be dope.
But on the other hand, yeah, you know, I was still, I mean, that kind of thing. There's not. I would not want to bore anybody with what I know about how, you know, whether it's Tide detergent or whether it's a magazine, you're paying for that space on the shelf, and it takes a lot of money to, you know,
Right.
there's still a magazine rack at the local grocery store, perhaps, but it's 1/3 the size that it used to be, and it basically represents 2 to 3 publishers that, you know, hold all the cards, and there's no room for anything like that there. It's great that this thing, can we call it this thing? That's a little mafioso. This scene has developed to where, you know, there is a you know, it's maybe a microcosm, maybe it's a macrocosm, probably more like the former, but you've got an audience that you can, you know, like you've done with your books, Jason, you know, like Frog G, there is an existing audience that is looking for solid, great work. And, you know, is it, I used to deal in hundreds of thousands, you know, circulation. Clearly I probably won't achieve those heights with ROKIT, but I am serving.
Well, it's still early.
Well, it's a targeted audience. And
Right.
It's an audience that is here for what hopefully some of us can bring to the table, you know?
Well,
Right.
what's up, Pedro? And go ahead, Aldous.
I was going to say, like you were saying, you know, you can't have a bad article. Well, it's no different. This is no different than anybody's book, man. You only get one chance to make a first impression, but all it takes each time is one bad book for everybody to walk away. So, you know, when we're putting this together and Steve and I are going through it, like, we're not saying like there's a high bar, but we're looking for the best content we possibly can to put into this. So say whether it's a quality interview, what content are we going to go? What's the approach on the interview? Or if it's a preview, and that kind of goes back to what you were saying, what's the difference between this and Wizard? Well, this, we actually have previews where it's an artist or a creator talking about this particular work. And then here's 6 pages of a story. And that story might be a fully encapsulated story that just doesn't fit within the context of a book they're trying to make. They might have had a great idea and they just, here's a short story, or it might be a preview of an upcoming book. But either way, you're getting a taste. You're getting an idea of where they're headed. What's the thrust of the creativity?
That's unique. I like that. Yeah, I didn't know about that one. And like you said, like Wizard never did anything, Hero never did anything like that. You know, it's you are setting yourself apart from like the norm. And that's
right.
great.
And that's more of the Epic Illustrated heavy metal influence in it. And that's where Steve and I took from all these great magazines that are on the topic that we love, comics and art, and we put it all together. And that's what we're trying to coalesce around. And, there's a lifestyle section. It's, Narwhal answering some questions on how you need to live your life.
Who best to give advice than Narwhal?
Exactly.
That's great. And that goes back to the question I actually kind of had earlier. Like, as far as like picking who you interview and stuff like that, did you base that off of like fan interaction? Did you like just be like, look at like the quality of the books or like the backer counts or like how well the campaigns were doing? Like, what made you decide on interviewing the people that you interviewed? Because you got everybody from Dean James to, Camel Moon to, like you just said, Narwhal, Malin. I mean, you got a great variety of people. So what made you pick, like, how'd you figure out going about who to pick and who in these issues?
Well, good question. And it's actually, excuse me, damn it. It's extremely difficult, really. I would like to do this book with more frequency because there is so much talent and so many people that I would like to feature, either, with the long form interview format or with previews and so forth. There's, it's a dual-edged sword, Jason, in that I am taking what I consider the most interesting, pertinent information and distilling it down, and yet there's simply not room for everybody that I would like to put in there. I do have, it's 120 pages, maybe a bit more this time around. It's an expensive print run. Shipping is expensive because it weighs a lot. So I could do 300 or 400 pages once a year. I'd rather do 120 pages, like maybe quarterly eventually.
Quarterly,
we got to work our way up to that. But as far as who, I've been really, really fortunate that I've given my experience and I'll say it, expertise with I'm a hell of a copy editor. I'm the best pre-press guy you're going to find. I know how to put a book together. I know how to do some of these things that are, I truly admire all of the great artists, but there's a few more of them than there are people that have my level of experience with putting together a package. So, it's difficult to determine who you want to have in there, but I've been fortunate enough to work with some pretty big names and help them along with their projects. That allows me some accessibility to where, I can hit them up and they'll agree. And again, part of a big part of my thought process with it is I want to have some of the biggest names, some of the most talented guys, some legendary figures as in the center ring, but it's very much intended to take some of that spotlight and divert it out to people that come along that catch my eye, catch Aldous's eye, there's a few other guys that are involved, at least to the extent of saying, have you seen this? And then you look at it and you go, okay, I got to find a place for that.
Right.
And a good example, that's our fan art section. We're highlighting Peter Orchard's studio. He did this amazing Gymshark piece that caught both of our eye. And it was like, we immediately reached out to him like, oh man, would you mind? Like, can we highlight you? And he was ecstatic. And
nice.
Asked him some questions and he delivered with and this is the other thing, man. Everybody that we approached on this, over delivered on anything we could expect on what they contributed. And we can't thank them enough.
Yeah.
But also it's when you're talking about it, like why include some of the names we included versus others? Well, a lot of it has to do too with kind of coalescing around a story. And so when you're talking about, and there's a reason it's Andy Smith and Tucci and Cimetti and Polton and Fraga. The next one might have a different arc, but it's kind of collecting, guys that came in a certain way or different ways, or there's a general theme. So, why are some people included over others? Well, it's about the theme of the mag. For issue 1, it was about the pros that first came over, right? So it was Malin, Malin and Cecil and the big boys, the early adopters. Eric Weathers was in it, for example.
Nice.
Now we're doing a little bit of a different arc on more of how did you get your road into indie comics, and the next one will have a different arc. And as far as who we highlight, but each time the goal is to have that general story.
But there's a theme throughout the whole like magazine, and not just like
we strive to have we definitely strive to have an underlying theme of
nice. That's different to me too. That the magazines of old really didn't like, at least like the like Wizard and Hero, like those kind of magazines. Like Epic was a little different, but those magazines really didn't have a theme. They were just like, hey, here's this artist, or like, and usually I also heard a way a lot of them got in was by just like paying, like, hey, I want to be in Wizard magazine. Here's a couple bucks.
Yeah. As much as I loved Wizard, the latter few years of it, that's a pretty dark.
And not to get into like that kind of stuff, but I was just saying, like, I knew I've heard about like such stories,
but it did start out as, I mean, they're Gareb Shaman's dad owned a comic store and had a McFarlane Spider-Man on the wall. That was the first cover. I mean, it started off as something that was pretty much in a similar vein, fan driven, and they were just enthusiasts. Later on, when it turned into a printing money factory, things got a little shady, to be sure. That's a whole other show.
It's a whole other thing, yeah. And like I said, like you said, like a lot of us build off of that nostalgia, and we take from the past, and we are a product of our times, but we also like learn from the past and like grow and expand upon it and try to improve. And so that's what you're doing with ROKIT. Link is in the description below. Please go back it. Help support this great project. So there are a lot of great creators in Comicsgate and in this independent scene, but there's also a lot of great fans. Would you ever think of, like, look at Lord Crackhead, for example? I mean, he's just taken off. And I know a lot of it is because of the House of the Dragon stuff, but on top of that, he does give a great show. 80s Made is blowing up. You got all these wonderful fans. Would you ever think about interviewing a fan and getting to know like what brought them into this scene and why they got into that route? Would you ever consider that?
Yeah, certainly. And actually, Aldous, I need to take a momentary break, but Aldous is putting together, I think Aldous, you can use this as a springboard to talk about something that you are putting together that's along those lines.
Let's springboard.
Yeah, So I mean, granted, I'm biased because obviously I'm involved in the magazine, but
right.
No, but I've got a short story in this that I did with Jay Potts, and it's a pulp noir piece. It's right to the source of what I'm passionate about and what I love. But in addition to that, it's the lead in to that is to talk about my channel and my experience growing in this community. Finally, transitioning away and trying to do comic content forever, and it never really catching on. And then turning to something that I'm passionate about and I speak with passion about, which is old time radio, specifically the old shadows, and how that led to my channel success. And then how I've been able to utilize that as a presence on YouTube to benefit others within the community and others within the network, both as a promotion aspect and as an advertising aspect. And, then how I take that love and then transition it over to make a comic. And that's kind of where it's a test to kind of see if that'll work. But by certainly, when you talk about, and one of the other things we're doing is we've got a section where we'll be talking to like the Comics Gway guys and the Genesis crew, and I've got D-Wag and Steve Worster doing a little section talking about how these groups are coming together that are multi-talented individuals they realize that them by themselves you're just a small speck, but if you get enough people together, you can get some resonance going, and you can use each other as a think tank and move forward. And it's helping the little guys succeed in the form of a group or a team aspect almost. Right. And so we are kind of highlighting that a little bit. And I definitely, moving into issue 3, issue 4, want to do more of that. So like a really good example of that currently right now is your own book with Frog G, because you've got yourself, you've got inks, and you've got Frog G, a team of 3 on one book. And it's not like, well, he's just doing the inks and then he's paying me and I'm doing the colors and it's this guy's book. No, it's a team effort. Mm-hmm. And I'd love to highlight some more of those books as we go forward and talk more about these creative teams that are forming. When you talk about like Matt Barr and Billy Basco and their logo business, you can't find anybody that's better than those two at doing what they're doing right now. Yeah. They knock it out of the park every time. Whether you're talking about, character design concepts, there's a lot of guys out there that are doing just phenomenal character design work. Pinups, there's a lot of guys that are doing pinup work. those are the kind of things that over the time we're definitely going to want to be highlighting and talking about, because those are all unique aspects within the network or the scene.
Yeah, there's a lot of lore, a lot of past history, like a lot the way things come about, certain things like some of it does get lost because unless you're there in the moment of this like lore, you'll forget it. So if you guys actually dig deep and like actually put it into print in ROKIT, link is in the description below, you can then have it permanency. Like it won't get lost in the ether, and it's not lost. You can find it, but like I said before, it takes forever, and plus you got to remember that crap. But if I'm like, oh, it's in ROKIT issue 3, I can go back and find out how DWAG, and all them got the crack pack and stuff like that, and like what they started doing and how it evolved in this whole lore of what it was. And you'd be like, oh, that was cool, man. I remember that now. So, and that's a great way and it should be highlighted. To me, this stuff should be preserved because people will tell me stories. Usually it's in like a backstage. Well, remember when this happened? I'm like, well, no, I wasn't in CG at the time. So, but if you go back and you have them in print, I don't need to worry about like a back room or like, especially if you're a fan, you're not in the back room. So you may not even know a lot of the fun stuff that happened. I'm not talking about the whole drama crap. I want to know the fun, good, exciting things that happened, back in the day. And like I remember, I always forget the guy's name, but there was a guy on Ethan's stream one time and he was like, they were talking or whatever. He leaned back and fell backwards down the stairs. I'm like, that's great stuff, whether or not it's article worthy, but it's fun. Yeah. So great stuff, though. Yeah. See, you guys know. I always forget who it was. I wasn't there, so I always have to be reminded of the guy's name. But
right. Well, talking about that, I mean, there's a lot of guys from early CG from 2018, 2019 that walked away for a variety of reasons. And one of them was a good friend of both Steve and I, Mike Angerhauser, and he had a lot of stuff going on, but he had to walk away from. But if there would have been something like ROKIT that would have given a highlight of what he was doing at the time, man, that'd be a great little moment in history that people could look back on. As it is, a lot of that stuff's kind of down the memory hole, and that's something that I hope never happens again. And I hope we can, like you're saying, kind of put something in the firmament with regards to the history aspects.
Yeah. Now, ROKIT mainly focuses on Comicsgate, right? Like, let's say but will it also focus on people who are like indie comics but CG friendly?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's independent comics, really. I mean, certainly Peter Simeti is CG adjacent, but he's never declared that he's CG, and that doesn't really. That's not really a factor to me. What's a factor to me is that here's a guy that began as a creator, still is a creator, but also formed his own imprint and began publishing other people's books, and then took it really an amazing step farther by going from traditional distribution to setting his own path with how that would work. So yeah, I mean it's not. Say you're Comicsgate. I mean, I'm Comicsgate, but that's not necessarily a litmus test for.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like if there's a product on Kickstarter that you feel maybe like has a great product, a great creator and stuff, like you would feel free to hit them up and be like, hey, I would love to get you better, and we would need to talk about your history, how you went into self-publishing and going about your own route, or Because
a great example of that is on my short list to talk to Steve about in the next issue is Adam Lawson, right?
Adam Lawson,
the Exiled book, and he's an excellent example of somebody he's not CG, but he's pure indie comics, man. Mm-hmm. And I mean, he's taken it super seriously to the point that he's doing a book with Wesley Snipes. So that benefits indie comics as a whole because it lends more credibility to it. It lends more gravitas to it. And guys like that are doing great work too. And by all means, we're going to highlight them. But in the first issue at the time, we talked to Irene, and Irene at the time wasn't CG.
Right.
So, for sure, we want to talk to everybody. If you're showing, some success and you're doing something different and it's working, man, we want to talk to you.
Yeah. I'm looking for talent, creativity, and the drive to succeed. And those are somewhat the litmus tests. But what you label yourself as, I mean, that's what I'm assuming that Aldous talked about, and apologies for having to take a break, but something.
Yeah, you're fine, man. No worries.
Doing an all-night marathon.
Hey, dude, I just had my nephew interrupt me for 20 seconds. You know what I mean? So life happens, you know?
there may have been copious amounts of beer involved in last night's marathon. And
there was a little bit going on. I know Bar and I dipped out, but
yeah, well, you know, generally I can hold my water a little better, but it's a little back.
It's no worries, man.
Worries. But you know, I mean, that's where the hell was I going with that? Shit, I don't know. But well, yeah, I mean, these groups that form and then they, you know, morph into something else, and you know, it's just a matter of why are you here? What are you doing? And what are you bringing to the table? I mean, you know, not that everybody. Not everybody needs to bring something to the table per se, other than their interest. But
well, and even their interest is usually good because their interest is what backs the books, and backing the books gets us funded. Us getting funded makes us be able to produce more content. So you know, even just showing an interest is as Malin says, it's grabbing an oar. You know, it's doing your part. You know, and even following a campaign, even following, like clicking the heart button. If you can't back ROKIT, click that little follow button. When an update happens, you'll get, maybe you'll remember, oh, I got to back ROKIT. You know, so make sure you click the link down below. Yeah, you know, if you can't back it, share it. If not,
share it out. Yeah,
those kind of things, right? And that's an interest though. Like there's plenty of people who just can't afford to back. Because to be honest, even a regular CG book or whatever, $25 plus shipping, that's expensive these days. So even if you're just sharing it out, you know, you're getting interested. You're doing your part. You're grabbing your oar. You know, and that's what that all comes from. That's what that stems from. And that right there is another dual-edged sword. Those of us that were around from the beginning can remember the days when we would back everything, but there was a whole lot less of it. You know, right? I mean, now there's so much out there that it's really, you know, I mean, certainly Aldous and some of the other guys that I work with have brought things to my attention. There was a time when I thought I knew everything. I probably didn't, but there wasn't much that was escaping me in 2018, early 2019. But here we are 4 or 5 years later. And, you know, it happens weekly that somebody will be like, have you seen this book? And I'm like, oh, shit. No, I hadn't seen that. So not only have you seen this book, but have you seen this great book? There's a lot of new great creators that are coming out even today that are, you know, I mean, like I remember September, we had that month of just great books being launched, but there were a lot of them were by veterans, you know, or people who have had a few campaigns. But even today, you're getting great campaigns launched by people I've never heard of, and they're just killing it, you know, at least artistically and creatively. But an issue we kind of are coming into a problem with now, though, is you're getting a lot of great talent. So there's so much spread apart that it's kind of hard to back all these. Like you were saying, back in the day, you could back everything and fund it and be like, oh, this is great. But now there's just so much good stuff. You're like, oh, I can only back this now. I got to wait a couple months for this one or that one. Sure. And so, we're spreading the pool a little more, but it's a little harder sometimes now to get funded. And it is picking and choosing at this point. So it's kind of like you're saying, double-edged sword. It's a good thing, but it's a bad thing. You know, it's like we want all these great campaigns to fund. We want ROKIT 2 to get out there. But there's so much great content on top of ROKIT 2 and, you know, Goblin Girl and all this other stuff that it's like, where do we put our money? You know, and plus I got to eat tonight. So I got to put gas in my tank to go to work. So, you know, these are trying times. And in these trying times, some things fall by the wayside. And usually extra expenditures are that. So you got to invest it properly. I think ROKIT's a great place to invest it because you're getting, like, if you can't back Billy Tucci's project or RT Bear's project, you can at least back ROKIT and get to know what their projects were or are, or like how they go about doing it. So you get kind of more of a history in it. So if anything, ROKIT is a good place to invest that few bucks that you do have for entertainment for this month, you know. And
right, and we're readily available. We're readily aware of what the market is as well. I mean, we see it over on CG Talk, launching books and talking about books every week. You see the rise and the fall of you can tell how good the economy is doing based off of how the books are doing. But that's one of the things that we really are focused on with ROKIT is it's about intrinsic value. So when you're talking, it's $25, but it's 120 plus pages.
Yeah. Dude,
and we're looking for cramming as much content and as much, good content in that thing as possible. And, it comes down to the wire, man. And, if there's good stuff that's in, we don't go, oh, well, we got to cut that to keep it at 120. No, it might be more than 120. It might be 128.
Right.
But we're really focused on keeping that value. And that's why that 120 is a minimum, but it might be more. It all depends on what kind of content we get coming in. And then when you're talking about,
sorry, Aldous, but yeah, I'm not going to cut, in my page outline, your guy does a thumbnail, you build magazines. Let me not digress too much. And I'm still not necessarily saying it's one way or the other, but the drawing tutorial that Dean James did was slotted for 2 spreads, 4 pages. It's probably going to be 6. Probably going to be 6.
Nice.
Some other. Yeah, I don't want to pick and choose and name favorites, but I am really impressed with Dean's work. But
Dean's great.
Well, I'll digress briefly because I'm the king of digression. Not only is I've admired his artwork, before we brought him in to do this issue's tutorial, but in addition to being able to really lay down some great lines, I was set back in my seat by how well he was able to explain his process. Here's why I'm doing this. This is how I do this. This is the next step. And, that's a winning combination that probably bumps my page count, makes my production costs that much higher. And if I'm not real damn careful, I'll be giving the post office even more money just because of the heft of it. But at the same time, if the work is that good and that worthy, how can I just hack it off because I've got this predetermined number in mind, So.
And that to me, that's the CG motto right there. It's because you're not going to cut it because it's quality and you want to give the fans quality because that's what this is about. This is about the fans. Yeah. So, and to me, that's the mindset of CG. I know other people have their own.
Giving him another couple of pages upsets my whole thumbnail apple.
Yeah, you got to work with it.
But so it goes. Now I got to find another couple of pages, which won't be hard to do, to offset. We got to do page signatures and a lot of things that most people don't have to concern themselves with.
But it's something you're doing for the fans.
You kind of got to do an even number of pages, as it turns out. It's very difficult to put out a publication with an odd number of pages.
Another great creator in the chat, Oliver. What's up, man? How you doing? Great colors. And that's the thing though. You're adding these pages because they need to be there. If you have to, and like you said, shipping. Man, that's another thing a lot of people don't even realize is even those extra 2 to 8 pages. Or 8 pages mainly, it might offset the weight, and you could then even be paying just those couple ounces that they can really can factor in and bump you up on the shipping costs. So, but you're still charging what you're charging. You're doing what you're doing because it's for the fans.
I would love to be able to sell it cheaper.
But,
at this point, I'm not going to say it's a lost leader, but it's if I can get this one. I got the last one funded and I got it out and that allows me to do another one by about this much. And, I would love to see it grow and all that, but it's not, it's, I am very much committed to it's got a card stock, I'll wave around one of the first ones. It's a cardstock cover. It's 100-weight paper.
Nice.
I'm not going to, do I need to do that? No. Would 80-weight paper be fine for a magazine? Yeah. 80-weight paper would be fine, but it's it doesn't take that much. I mean, this is backrooms, nuts and bolts that most consumers don't need to concern themselves with.
They don't.
If I go up a couple of ounces, it's going to cost me more to do it with every package that I send out. So
exactly, yeah. And I've even come into that problem with shipping. You toss in, I'll have the book and stuff. It'll weigh so much. I toss in a couple of the stretch goals, and it bumps up those few extra ounces, and now I'm in a whole different shipping bracket. And it's man, this is ridiculous. But
for sure.
Yeah, so I mean, and that's the other thing. That's great though that y'all are willing to like be like, hey, we have to add these extra ounces in for the fans. It costs us. It's more. It's more. It is what it is. We have to do what we have to do to make this product, make ROKIT a great magazine, give great interview, great content. Even give Dean James a couple extra pages of those drawing tutorials. Do what you have to do to make a product for the fans to enjoy and really appreciate.
I feel like again, I'd love to sell it for $10. I'd be so upside down, it'd be ridiculous. But yeah, I mean, I feel quite strongly that there's a lot of books out there. $25 is kind of the going rate. We're doing 120 pages. You're not going to sit down on your front porch and get it. I mean, maybe I'm really fast at reading, but it's not going to be a 20-minute experience. It's going to be something that you can chew on for a while. So
right, and there you go. There's the. I'm gonna go ahead. I did it as an overlay because it's a little. And did I do it as an overlay? I thought I didn't upload the thing, so I didn't share the. I'm gonna upload this real quick. So yammer on about what can we expect? I know we went in depth quite a bit, but what more can we expect out of ROKIT? Like, what are the nuts and bolts, so to speak? Like, what are we doing here?
Well, again, I just yammered on about 120 pages. There's five long form interviews with some very notable creators. I think there's 6 previews where there's somewhat shorter, but still, a little bit of question and answer about, where did you come from? Why are you doing this? What are your talents? There's 3 tutorials. There's
nice.
Several pages of super fan art, because again, I love it that I had a couple of guys that weren't doing a book. Again, I'm not saying that's why they're doing a book, but I love it that I had a couple of guys that were in the super fan art section that are now working on quite notable books.
Yes.
Everybody's going to, when you see what Jay Potts is doing, man, it's
nice.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna play the trailer real quick for you. I know people like trailers.
Primary ignition.
ROKIT Magazine, built to propel indie comics into the stratosphere. A modern ode to publications like Wizard, Epic Illustrated, Alter Ego, and Heavy Metal. Featuring Billy Tucci, Dan Fraga, Andy Smith, Peter Cimetti, and Mark Holton. Additional content, from tutorials to previews, from the Barton Brothers, Crowfire Studios, Kier Covington, Dean James, Rob Arnold, and many more. Become a part of the mission.
You know what I like about that? I like that you have an audio track over it. Because, dude, I'll say this a lot. I'll be at work sometimes listening to streams or whatever, and they'll play trailers, and it's just music. And I'm at work, though. I'm not watching it. I'm listening to it. And so I'm like, I don't know now. I have no idea tell me more about it in the trailer. And that's a great trailer. It sums it up in a good time frame. And also, I didn't know you had Crowfire Studios, and that's cool. So awesome. Great.
Yeah, we got Arvid from Crowfire Studios is doing the first 6 pages of Band of the Crow, which is not coming out for about another year. And
dude.
It's the pages are just amazing. People are going to be floored with what he's doing, and I'm really hoping it builds some hype for his book, because Arvid's a hell of a writer, and the artist that he's got, Oran, is just killing it on these pages. So it's going to be nice. I'm hoping that'll be like the gem that everybody's really shocked by and gets really pumped for that book.
Nice. And so this is the cover, right?
That's the cover. And watching the video reminded me that first and foremost, I want to make a real point on each and every stream that I go on.
Do it.
3D Robin has been much like Aldous, kind of co-conspirators, probably not. Mm-hmm. I think I'll go with collaborator, but 3D Robin is an incredible, invaluable asset. He, obviously did a fair amount of work for Ethan back in the day. He's currently very gainfully employed by very major companies, so he's kind of dipped out a bit. But He's still my good friend. He's still one of my primary sounding boards. Every week, at least once, we get together and he tells me what shit. And
it's always nice to have somebody like that.
Yeah. He doesn't pull any punches. And we have a great relationship. And he designed the logo. He designed an awful lot of the page. I lay out the pages. I design the pages, but I could not do it without the assets that he provides me. The ROKIT underlays, the little touches, the department headers. So props to 3D Robin. And then back to the cover itself. A friend of mine and a friend of Robin's is EJ Morges, who's obviously
EJ's
an amazing artist. And he got with me after he got his first issue, and he was featured in the first issue of ROKIT. So maybe he had a bit of an agenda, but he was like, "This is great. I love this. Comicsgate needs this. Independent Comics needs this. When are you going to do your next one?" And I was like, "Honestly, EJ, I'm not sure." And he's like, "No, you've got to do another one." And I said, "Well, if I do, will you do the cover?" Because the cover was kind of a tepid reception on the first one. I don't want to delve off from that.
No,
I may well have last night when I'd had a few more beers. But yeah, EJ said, absolutely, I'd be honored. And I was like, "No, dude, the honor would be all mine." So yeah, fantastic work by EJ. I am working on a project with Vault Cobalt, and it's going to be really, really great when people see that. But he actually found Carlos Moreno D. That another example of a guy that I peripherally was aware of. He was involved in a couple of projects that passed by my eyes. But when I saw what he was doing with Vault's upcoming work, I'm like, that's the guy that I need to get. And so, yeah, between the talents of EJ and Carlos, I'm pretty stoked on this cover. So,
yeah, it's dope, dude. It's a nice cover. I love it. I dig it. And then you got like I said, people know I can't really read stuff, so I'm gonna scroll past that. I can if I have like a magnifying glass or I use my phone, but I'm not gonna bust my phone out to zoom in on this stuff. Plus, we've been talking pretty more in depth, I think, than what we have.
Well,
here,
yeah.
So
the rest of it just kind of a sample.
The nuts and bolts,
that's the opening spread of the Billy Tucci.
Yeah, I love it though, dude. I like the layout. It looks great, dude. Great graphic design elements to it. Really good. Yeah, I love it. And now is Billy Tucci the first interview in it? Is it?
Well, with all due respect to Dan Fraga, I mean, yeah, Billy's right up front. Yeah, I think everybody involved would agree that Billy deserves, to lead the way. So
I came with Fraga, but I do agree with you. Tucci as well. I actually just rebought, I should say, the first She because I lost mine as per usual. I lose my stuff. But I was like, man, I got to have it back again. I'm like, because I have plenty of signed stuff by him or like variant covers, but
he's just a legend. He's
just a legend.
And he's
pioneer. He paved the way for a lot of people.
Absolutely,
he really did. He's a trailblazer.
I mean, it was fascinating to talk. I'm like, why did you do it independently? And he was like, nobody wanted it. And I'm just like, holy shit.
I don't know how.
Yeah.
Well, it's a good thing he went independent, though.
He's benefited immensely from it. Yeah. But, I mean, it's another, beyond the fact that he's a legendary figure in comics, he leads the way because he did, in fact, lead the way. Whether it was through having no other choice or for whatever matter, he was independent long before this current scene popped up.
Independent in a big way. Because
in a huge way.
You had those lower independent guys that just really didn't people pay too much aside from maybe Eastman and Laird, but aside from that, the indie scene was indie. But once She hit, I mean it blew up. You got, I don't know if Lady Death came before or after, but it's still.
I believe that I certainly ascribe to the idea.
Yeah,
I don't know if I can quite call it a fact, but I think She was what spawned entire genre of
it really made indie popular. Yeah. And then you got I like this layout too, dude. Great eye for like I said, great eye for layout, great eye for graphic design. This is good. Yeah, I love it.
I love wrapping text, man. I like to cut out an image and wrap text around it. Yeah,
it's great, man. Like, and this is what a magazine article should look like. This is what a magazine should look like. You know what I mean? It's not just like word, one image. Like you have a great layout. It's beautiful. Yeah,
thank you. I work hard at it, but yeah, I mean, essentially, you're seeing a sample of one of the long form interviews. You're seeing a sample right there with Dean James of some of the tutorial section. We've also got Rob Arnold giving his top 10 tips for crowdfunding, but he's got 100 tips. And Rob's, I said this last night on one of those shows, but he's not the best example of I need to draw attention to Rob Arnold, because I think everybody knows Replicator Rob. Yeah. But maybe somebody hasn't read, he's got a fantastic Google Doc that explains to people that are new to the game, here's the things that you need to do with your crowdfunding, and, kind enough to provide us with what he considers the top 10 of them. And if on the off chance that somebody doesn't know about that resource, I can draw attention to it by,
And like I said, again, like you said, people may not know he has those tips, but also you have to maybe watch one of his streams, and maybe he streams kind of late sometimes. You may not even catch him or catch the replay. So this is a great way to get those tips and have them at your disposal, rather than actually having to go into your computer and getting into your downloads, navigating through everything and doing all that hoopla. Here you can just jump right to it, flip through a couple pages, you're good to go. It's a lot faster, a lot easier.
Yeah, and like you were saying earlier, it's also, you can put it in your stack of books. And and then you decide to launch your own project, and you're like thinking, what's the best approach? Go dig it out of your stack and reread that article. And, it may be of help to you now, but it might be one of those things where you pick it up a year down the road or 2 years down the road, but it'll be there in a physical form, right? Where where it is.
It's proposal. It's like I was talking all this permanency. Yeah. You know what I mean? And also, what if your power goes out?
Right.
I mean, all you need is a flashlight at that point, and you have all at your disposal already.
Well, I'm going to set Aldous. I'm going to set up Aldous with this, but to me, there's just something about the physical quality, and beyond the physical quality, the fact that it is, speaking from a magazine web. I've done a lot of design work, web pages and brochures and magazines, and there's the limitations of something that you can scroll on your phone. You can't do what you can do with a 2-page spread, horizontal layout. I can go over the fold if I want to, as long as I match up, you got to know how to do that kind of thing. But I mean, there's such an impermanence with art that only art, or any media, art, writing, whatever it is, that exists only in a digital form. I mean, it's here and then it's gone. It's like that old George Carlin routine. There's a moment coming. It's almost here. Oh shit! It's gone. We missed it. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Well, and when you talk about that too, as we've learned, especially over the last few years, as the long arm of Big Brother reaches down into your hard drive, if it's digital, you technically don't own it, because it can disappear at any time.
Yep.
If it's on a cloud, it can be removed. If it's on your hard drive, it can have an expiration date where it goes away, or you're one computer crash away from it being gone. Physical media always stays, and it never changes. And that's even more important, is that it never changes. Nobody can go in and alter that thing that you love and change its context or change the meaning or anything. Not to say that this or anything else is that important. But also, you guys were talking about, indie comics and, Tucci's rise. There's a lot, like when Steve and I talk, I mean, we talk about epic and heavy metal and all that, but I do also always want to say that, like, Wally Wood's Wit's End, like, there's a little bit of that in this, and there's a little bit of Mike Friedrich's Star Reach in this. And, if you're an old school comic guy, what those books meant for the indie scene at the time. And the indie scene was always there. If you go back to the 60s, Wally pretty much established it all on his own by doing the stuff that he did. But, you go from Vaughn Bodie and Ralph Bakshi, and, everybody has their own transition both into and out of indie. But when you start going back far enough and you see all the paths that cross, that's where, like, a story like Dan Fraga's really resonates to me, because he starts as a young kid, and he was a kid. slinging ink. And then he had movie studios coming to him to do storyboards. It wasn't he didn't go looking for it. They came to him. And then his career exploded. And he did movies like Transporter. And it's just amazing when you look at the list of films that this guy was on and you go, oh my God, why did he ever leave comics? Well, look at what he did when he walked away.
Yep.
Man, and that's the cool part is these guys all have their different crossroads for how they came in and came out of indie comics and then what brought them back. And almost universally, it's a love for the medium. And, that's Comicsgate is a lot of things, but really, truly, there aren't that many like diehard comic fans. And something like this, part of this, maybe a fringe goal, is to develop and nurture a little bit of that real deep appreciation and love for both the format and comic history itself.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's a great book. Everybody needs to really get on it. Like you said, it's a preservation as well. Like it's a physical media. You'll always have it. And it's an appreciation of what we're doing here. And not only on top of that, but what other people can do, not just think like, they're like, oh, well, I don't really agree with what a Comicsgate is, or because they don't want to look into it, but they can be like, but they're at least doing their own thing in this indie scene. And you mentioned all those great indie creators from the days past. A lot of them I never even knew of. So, but a lot of the people out there that were into indie or into Comicsgate, they may not know who Dan Fraga is really, because he kind of, like you said, he dipped out. He went into the movies. And so when he came back, because of Black Flag, and because Ethan kind of also was like, hey, you should really do Black Flag here. And so, that's one way, get the magazine, read the article, read the interview, because it'll tell you more than what I possibly ever could. But a lot of people, some people may not know who these people are, even Camel Moon, I mean, crap, I didn't know who Camel Moon was until this, obviously, because he came in through this. So, but if you could spark that creativity and somebody be like, yes, I really wanted to do this, but I never really had the funds. I didn't know you could do it. And so, reading their stories and how they got about all this, it's a great thing to look into, read. And where else are you going to get these articles aside from here, and real quick, we'll go over the tiers just so people watching the replay or watching now, if you're interested in backing, which you should back or follow. Once again, let me reiterate this because I think it's important in these trying times. You may not have money now, but you might in a couple weeks or a week or so. There's this follow button here. Just click it. And once you get an update, you'll get the update as well, even though you didn't back the book yet. But it might remind you, oh yeah, I got to back this book. So, or at least share this out. So you got your all in tier pretty much here, right? This is the first one.
Yeah, the full payload, and credit to Aldous for that's a good name. That was his idea, like but it is everything that comes with this book. It's mission number 2. It's the mission number 2 T-shirt. It's a beanie. It's a koozie, and it's also aimed at the people that didn't pick up the first one. They're overprinted, as behooves all of us, and so that's the first issue. The new issue. The new T-shirt. I got to do these hats because I've been running this one for like 10, 12 years now, and I need a new hat. So that's what that's
nice.
Yeah. So
I like beanies.
Yeah, it's getting faded out. I need a new one. So and then the koozie. It keeps your beer cold. You got to have a koozie, and this thing also has been through a few days at the track. So it's
there you go.
koozie.
Nice.
Strangely enough, EVS isn't Ethan Van Sciver, but rather a company that makes knee braces out of concrete. But, there's a certain old sponsor of mine, but they're not sending me any more free shit. So I need to
that's a shame.
Yeah, as Son of Liberty Radio calls it, the full payload comes with the mail-in combo, which is the beanie hat and the beer koozie. So,
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I like now. Are there add-ons to this as well? Like, can you add on anything you want, or is it like all package deals?
It's all pretty much package deals, but
okay.
I think there's one for everybody. I didn't want to, I don't like those campaigns where there's 20 different tiers. But you can get it all, or there's a
you get it all right here.
Get the magazine and the T-shirt, and
this is a great price point, by the way. Yeah, it's a great price point for everything that you get. Yeah, good deal. Like
that also includes it won't fit in the thumbnail, but I love the cover art, so there will be a poster of the cover, and there's also and it includes that, and there's a thing that I call the mission badges, which is, again, all credit goes to 3D Robin. He's like, well, if your theme's going to be rocket, you should have, NASA had a different patch for, each Apollo mission and each space shuttle mission. So don't be confused. It's a sticker, but you get the logo that we're using this time around. You get a badge that says Mission 1. You get a badge, and obviously in this one it's Mission 2, but I don't have them yet. But it's got the guys that were featured in the first one. So the full kit does come with the poster and the Mission 2.
You're getting a lot of bang for your buck there. I think that's the tier to really get. To me, the featured tiers are pretty much where you want to jump in. Granted, if you have the cash, but if not, you got the book right here. So you can get Mission 2.
And I'm shooting myself in the foot when I say that, but really, the merch and this and that, I have an excellent resource. By the way, if you want to know where to get some of this stuff done, I've got some great friends live down in Florida, and they produce an awful lot of clothing for like virtually every law enforcement agency in North Florida and so forth. And
nice.
they're really, really good. And I'd love to throw them some additional business, but I just want to do a damn magazine,
Right. I hear you, dude. It's like,
people like they
like the add-ons and the extras and the bells and whistles. But I'm in the same boat. Like I know Zach did it where he just did Pandemic. There was nothing else to it, but I would love to do just the book, but I also get it. It's very expensive to back at a $25 tier or whatever. So you're like, well, it's a lot of money. So if you toss in bookmarks or something, which aren't an arm and a leg, but it's still like, I would really just love to focus on just the book. But I get where you're coming from, but I also get where the fans are coming from. So
yeah. So it's fan service. There's a tier where you can get what you need, and again, part of my impetus is that my koozies and my hat are, I need some new stuff too. So
and then this is which one is this one?
That's a magazine and a koozie.
Magazine and a koozie. And then, so you can get the hat in white or black, or is it just white?
It's actually kind of a grayish color.
Gray.
It's a silver gray.
Ooh, nice. I like that. Nice.
Yeah, and that's there again. I can't go too far down. Actually, the people that produce my apparel, they're like, well, we can do shirts in black and blue and gray and white and this and that. And I'm like, you just don't have any idea what a nightmare the whole Indiegogo interface is.
Dude, building those tiers, keeping track of it all.
And then the fulfillment process and all that. I just want to do a magazine.
And I've always said the fulfillment process itself, like actually packing everything up, that's my least favorite, but it's also kind of my favorite because it's my least favorite because I hate doing it, but it's my favorite because that means everybody's going to get their stuff. And that's my favorite part out of everything.
To me, it's really gratifying once it's sitting there in its package and it's addressed and it's got the stamps.com. It's like ready to go and I can just take down to the post office. But then it's kind of excruciating. Seeing everybody get their stuff. Folding all those Gemini mailers, and does this one get a sticker or does it not get a sticker? And jeez.
Well, what's this is the shirt?
That's you get the mag, you get the shirt, you get the poster, you get the sticker, the mission badge kit.
Okay, cool, nice. And then this one here is kind of like an all-in-one, right?
That's all in one minus the first issue. That's for previous backers that already have Rocket number 1, mission number 1. That's all the new stuff. And thank you for backing me the first time around, and you've already got one of those. So
for sure.
Yeah.
And if you signed up for the mailing list, you'll have a link that has 2 discount tiers, and you'll get a trading card as well.
Ooh, nice. People do.
Yeah, everybody that was on the mailing list is going to get a trading card of the EJ Morges cover, sans logos, just the straight art and colors.
Nice. Yeah, I do like trading cards. I think we do like them here. What's up, Tank Fair? We like them here in Comicsgate. People like our trading cards there. Yeah, great. Awesome. Everybody hit the follow button if you can't back. Share it out. Retweet the campaign or put it on your Facebook or wherever if you can't back now, or if you're like, hey, I like it, but it's not for me too much. It might be for one of your friends, or even if it's for you, you're a Comicsgate. You see this, but your friends are into comics, but they're not on the social media scene. if you like, hey, just mention to, hey, there's this cool book, ROKIT, check it out, and give them like the website or something, like text it to them or something. Because the more people that are outside of Comicsgate, outside of this YouTube indie social media scene, see these things, the better and the more they back it, the more eyes we'll see, because this word of mouth and everything like that really drives this whole scene that we have going on here. It really does. So, if you can't back, or if you are backing, tell your friends who are into comic books and who love the medium, who also feel maybe it's gone a bit of the wayside, even if they haven't collected in 10 years. Maybe this will start, stoke those fires again. You never know. And what a great way to dive in.
Yeah, I do hope that, if I may, I do hope that, those of us that have been around for a minute or since the beginning, there are a lot of people that are relatively new to the scene. I like the scene. I'm going to start using the scene. Cool. There's a lot of people that are new to the scene, and it's in addition to everything else, maybe it's a bit of an introduction. Maybe it's a bit almost of a primer of
right.
This is what we got going on. So
well,
if you know somebody new, please let them know.
Well, who was it? I don't know if it was Malin or somebody who was saying, like, I can't remember who said it, but they were saying, as you buy comics as a kid, you grow up, and then around 17, you kind of fade away because you're hanging out with girls and all this stuff. So you kind of stop collecting at that point. But then if you're that's true for today's time. Imagine like if you were 17 a few years back, and now you try to get back into comics, and you're like, what is this? Robin's gay, Batman's bi, Superman's gay. Like, you're like, what happened to my comic books? But if you're a fan, one of your friends is like, dude, comics are right here. Look at this magazine. It'll tell you everything you need to know about your old creators that you loved, and some new ones. And if you look at this magazine, it's a great jumping off point. It's a great introduction to what we're doing over here in the indie comic scene, in Comicsgate also. So to me, like, a magazine like this is needed in these times, because people might be overwhelmed with like, oh, Indiegogo, Kickstarter, look at all. I don't know what to back. I don't know where to go. But if you're highlighting certain aspects, certain key points, and maybe even certain creators and even new creators, people might be like, okay, this is a good part. Archie Bear, I remember that guy. I didn't know he's doing black and white again. Cool. Or I didn't know he's doing chrono mechanics. That sounds kind of dope. So, this is a great point, jumping in point is ROKIT. It's a great thing. Everybody needs to pick it up. Link is in the description below, along with their Twitter information. I didn't do their YouTubes because I'm a horrible individual, but I think this is a great product. People need to go check it out. I know I'm a creator, so some fans out there might be like, oh, I don't, there are some fans who are like, I don't really listen to creators, push creators, but I'm also a fan. I am. I grew up loving this stuff. I just happened to be blessed with the talent enough to be able to draw and the passion for comics to want to do them.
Absolutely.
So yeah, great stuff, man. Love it. Everyone check it out. Link is in the description below. You guys want to close out on anything? You want to mention anything, plug anything, do anything?
Just
ahead,
echo. Steve. Yeah. You can have the final word. Aldous, you're better at it than I am, but I just want to echo what you said, Jason. I wouldn't ultimately, at the end of the day, I wouldn't be doing this magazine if I wasn't a tremendous fan of everything that it takes to build a comic book and to be good at sequential storytelling. And it's a pleasure and a privilege to be in a position where I can get a Dan Fraga on the phone, or to get a Billy Touche on the phone, and or on a live stream like this, but that it's not actually live. It's just me, him, one-on-one. And, it's ultimately as a fan that I'm even here. So.
Nice.
For sure. And I mean, we were humbled by everybody that's involved in this, that we've reached out to on what they've, what they've contributed, but even more so humbled by the response. Everybody's been extraordinarily awesome about talking about it, and the excitement's infectious, and we appreciate it. We appreciate every backer. See, we're up to 52 now, so a couple of guys have backed. Thank you so much.
Nice, Hale.
And I want to reiterate too, like Jason said, you don't have to back to support us. If you believe in this, but it's not for you, please share the link and spread the word. That's all we ask. So thank you again very much, and thank you, Jason. We really appreciate
thank you, Jason. We appreciate being on.
Oh, yeah, you're welcome. Like I said, once again, this is my first go, and I actually preferred the way we did it, like just hanging out at first and talking, because a lot of people, like, I'm new, so if I'm on a stream, I prefer people to get to know me, and then talk about a product, because not everybody knows you, Steve, and not everybody knows you, Aldous. And I know, like, my channel is relatively small, so I might have similar people that came in from other ones, but there might be people that only follow me. I don't know. So, if you're watching on the replay, or, if you're watching now, thank you so much. This is my first go at it. And thank you guys for being my guinea pigs.
Hey, thanks for having us, man.
You did a great job. Casual and fun.
Thanks, man.
This kind of stream I dig without,
Yeah,
not only that, it's like during hours that I'm generally awake. I'm like last night.
Hey, man, my schedules are usually pretty, like, jam packed with family stuff, and then work. So that's why afternoons or whatever, they're good for me, man. I like doing it. Plus, not too many people are streaming at 4 in the afternoon, so I thought it was a good time.
I always say there's like Pacific Standard Time, Mountain Standard Time, Central Standard Time, Eastern Standard Time, and then there's Comicsgate time, and that's
a different ballgame.
That's a whole other. Yeah,
that's a different animal, man.
That's a moving target. So
yeah, really.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you once again, everybody. Thank you to my panel and my guests, and I'll see y'all later. Have a good one.
Yep. Thanks again.
Lord.